Hey there, this is Lucius LaFramboise from ENG Suite, and today we are going to be learning about the message box. So earlier we learned about input box, and today we're going to learn about message box because you're probably familiar with message box when it comes to testing out your code, but we're going to learn that it's actually really useful in doing some things that you would expect the input box to do. So here I have the actual Microsoft documentation for MsgBox because we're going to be referring back to it a little bit on some of the outputs of the message box. So first, let's go into Excel here, and we are going to open up a module to start typing some stuff. First thing I'm going to do is create a public sub called Learn Message Box. Okay, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to message box. This is a message box. So the way that you use it is you just do MsgBox, and then you can open up your parentheses, and like here you'll see all we have to include is prompt. So right now that's all we're going to do. We're just going to run. This is a message box, and this is what your message box looks like. It has an X and an OK. Okay, but now you're going to see buttons as VB message box style. So first we're going to start with the, you'll see it's got the brackets, which means that it's optional. So we're going to start with the VB OK only because that's actually not going to do anything different. But you'll notice if we don't do anything, we're good. But then if we do the VB OK only, it says expected equals. And that's because our message box is actually going to be returning a value. So let's call it output, set it equal. And then I am going to debug.print output. All right, let's run this. Okay. And we get a 1. Let's try it again. If we exit, we get a 1. Okay, let's go in here and let's see. 1 is OK canceled. Oops, sorry, wrong one. If we come down here, a 1 is VB OK. So you might be thinking, well, that's kind of weird. Why would we be having an OK returned when we hit the X? And that's because this is just an OK only. It's sort of like an information thing. So if you just want to let somebody know that something's going on, and we can actually do that. So let's say, let's go in here, and let's say we have a bunch of them, and I'm just going to show you in kind of an order here. And the first thing that we're going to take a look at is VB exclamation and information. And then I believe there's one more. Yes, question. So let's start with question since we're here. Let's say this is a question message box. And we run it, and you'll see it's just a normal message box, but it sort of has a question mark there, okay? But we don't just have a question mark symbol. We can also do VB, and let's go down, exclamation. This is an exclamation. We run this. Now this is when you want to let somebody know, hey, something's going on. But let's say you don't really want a warning symbol. You want to let somebody know something's happening, but not a warning. That's going to be VB information. Information message box. And we run that, and we see it has an I. Let's take a look at some other stuff we have. Critical. I wonder what that could look like. So let's run critical, and you'll see this is like an error. So I would consider this to be one of the information, and it makes that error sound you're used to. But anyway, let's take a look at some of our others. So you'll also notice in here that we have these default buttons. Those really aren't useful. If you want fancy buttons, you should probably just use some sort of application modal. I'll show you how to do that later when we get into the actual forms. But anyway, you'll see that we have message box right. And if we run this, you'll notice that it just formats this. So instead of being on the left, it's right adjusted. And we've got a couple more like that here. We've got, this is right to left, so if it's a language where it's right to left, it will format accordingly. Set foreground, that's really not useful. It just sets the message box into the foreground of the application. It already does that. You don't really need to do that. And then you have, that's pretty much it, I guess. So it really comes down to what you're looking for. Critical, we've already looked at. Application modal, this is going to just make it so that you can't do anything until you finish interacting with it. And that's already standard behavior as well. Okay, let's start taking some actual information. So let's do VB OK cancel. So this is where we're going to start using our output. So I'm going to come down here, Control A and delete. So on VB OK cancel, whoops, this is an OK/cancel. Going to just clear that. And if we run this and we hit OK, we get a 1. And if we hit cancel, we get a 2. If we hit X, we get a 2. Now you can see that the X has turned into a cancel button, and it's returning that cancel. So let's take a look in here, and we see, yes, VB cancel 2. Awesome. I'm going to throw these up on the screen now so that you can check as we're going through these. All right, so next, what we might do here is abort, retry, and ignore. This one gives us 3 options. Abort gives us a 3. Retry a 4. Ignore, we get the ignore value. And then what happens if we cancel? We don't get a cancel button. So you have to choose one of these. So in this case, we'll start actually using these in a couple different scenarios. But right now, I'm just trying to show you what each of these can do. We have a yes, no. Yes, no. So these are great if you want to ask somebody if they would like to proceed. And then we have one more. We have a VB yes, no, cancel. Oh, and we do have one more after this. A VB yes, no, cancel. And now we can X, and it gives us a 2, a cancel value. Okay, and then we had one more. And let's see here, retry cancel. Retry. And then again, we have an X, which gives us cancel. Okay, so you might be thinking, that is great, but what would we really do with this? And we're going to get into that a little bit later in the video, but you'll notice that we also have a title property. And so for title, we'll just say MsgBox title. And we run that, and we get this is a message box with a MsgBox title. Using the standard selecting parameters. If you don't know how to do that, check out one of our other videos. And then we have help file and context. Those really aren't going to be useful for you. If you want to provide resources for people using your applications, I highly recommend making some sort of SOP or work instruction to go along with it rather than building it into Excel. I think that just makes for better control over documents. Okay, so we've got the basics out of the way. What is an example of when we would use something like this? Okay, so let's go into our actual workbook here. And let's say this data will be deleted. Okay, so let's say we have some sort of macro that's going to be clearing this data and replacing it with new data. So we'll have some function in here that's going to check for existing data. And then we'll say data found equals true. And then if data found, then we're going to check. Then we're going to ask to delete or exit. So we're going to look for data, and we see that our data is found. So now we're going to say, okay, do you want to delete this data? So in here we'll say output equals MsgBox. This action will delete existing data. Do you want to continue? And we'll say data found. And we don't need the title yet because we instead need our VB message box style. So for this one, we are going to, let's delete this. So we have our prompt, and now we want to come down here and we want to do a yes, no. And then for our title, we'll just say data found. Okay, awesome. Then here I'm just going to debug.print our output. Okay, so let's say we run our function. And here, this action will delete existing data. Do you want to continue? Yes. Okay. If we hit yes, it's going to return a 6. I'm just going to delete this. If we run it again and now we click no, it's going to return a 7. Okay, so now what we need to do is say, well, if output equals VB yes, then exit sub. Okay, and I'm going to just double check. Got to come over here, and VB yes, it will return a 6. Let's go back in here, and then we exit the sub. Otherwise, we will debug.print delete data. Okay, so what will happen is it finds the data, it says, hey, do you want to continue? And then if we say yes, we exit sub, but we don't want to. If it equals VB no, we exit sub, because what we're saying is no, we don't want to continue. So let's try running. This action will delete existing data. Do you want to continue? No, I don't. I don't want to delete my data. No, you see nothing happens. If we run again and we say this action will delete existing data, do you want to continue? I click yes, delete data. So my data has been deleted. And just to show you what that would look like, let's say we do active sheet dot range, and our range for this is A1 to C2, and then we say delete, right? Okay, let's go in here and take a look. So A1 to C2, if we run this, we run macros, learn MsgBox. This action will delete existing data. Do you want to continue? No, I don't. Our data is just fine, but we run it again and we say, do you want to continue? Yes, and our data has been deleted. Okay, so that is a great example of how we would use a yes, no. But let's say we have some error checking. Okay, let's say you have run something and check for error. Okay, and then we say error occurred. If error occurred, forgot an R there. If error occurred, then here's what we're going to do. Instead, we're going to do a message box, and we're going to say an error occurred. What would you like to do? And this time, we are going to do VB abort, retry, or ignore. Okay? In here, we are going to set the title as error code. There we go, 10, just a random, and then there. Okay, so in here, we're going to have 3 options, and we want to do something. So if output equals, let's say, retry, so VB retry, then what we're going to want to do is go to retry, right? So then let's say we have up at the top here, retry. And we put that. So that's how, maybe we'll do a video on go to. But so what's going to happen is if we say retry, it just starts over from the beginning. If output equals abort, VB abort, then exit sub. Okay, so then if we say abort, it exits the sub. If output equals ignore, VB ignore, then go to continue. So then here we will have a continue tag. Okay, so if we hit retry, it goes back to the beginning. If we hit abort, it leaves. If we hit ignore, we go to continue, and then that's where we will delete. So in here, I am just going to, let's say, run a message box that says sub at beginning, and then I'm going to say message box continued. Okay, so now we're going to come back in here and we'll say this data will be deleted. Okay, so here we come in, we run our learn message box. Our sub is at the beginning, that's great. We hit an error. What would you like to do? We have three options. First, I'm going to demonstrate retry. So that should go back to the beginning and it'll tell us it's at the beginning. So we hit retry. Sub at beginning, great, we retried it. And we can just keep doing that. But it's clear we're running into an error. So let's just ignore it. Let's just, you know what, let's abort it. We don't want to cause any issues. We abort, function's over, we exited. Let's say we run it. We're at the beginning and we ignore it. We continued and it deleted the data. So that's one way to use your message box to make sure that somebody wants to continue with something if an error occurs. So there's a couple other things we can do, but generally this kind of takes the same concept. So let's say this time we want to do VB, and I think this is going to be the next most useful one, would be an OK cancel. When it comes to that, you can do retry cancel. Maybe let's do retry. And so this one would be basically the same thing. Except, yeah, let's keep that. So if output equals VB retry, then go to retry. If output equals VB cancel, then exit sub. Okay, so we know that we're always going to hit the error because we did it, but let's just see what happens. We're at the beginning, an error occurred, what would you like to do? I'd like to retry. We start over, retry, start over. Let's just cancel. And then it exits without doing continue. Another one might be something like this. An error occurred, would you like to continue? Then we can use VB OK cancel. And you know what? It doesn't just have to be that. It can be existing data will be deleted. Would you like to continue? If equals VB cancel, then we exit sub. Otherwise, we continue. So in this, we can either choose OK or cancel, and canceling would then exit the sub. Let's go back in here, and this data will be deleted. We run our function. Now, sub at beginning, existing data will be deleted. Would you like to continue? Cancel. Run it again. We can also hit X, nothing happens. But then if we hit OK here, existing data will be deleted. Would you like to continue? OK. Continued. deleted data. So MsgBox isn't just about alerting people. That's a great thing to do. I highly recommend using question, using the critical, using the information, using that warning. Just to, if you're gonna be just letting people know, but you can use it as sort of as a way of interacting and using UI to ask simple yes or no questions or multiple choice questions. So it's super duper useful. I really think it's a great thing to include, especially as you start getting into more complex VBA applications, especially ones that involve deleting pre-existing data. So thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and please do something awesome.